Hello, I am Lady Balefire, and you're here for our episode 9 review of House of the Dragon. And I have Alex with me again, filling in for a last minute cancellation. And how are you doing today, Alex?
I'm doing well.
Awesome. So, episode 9, what did you think?
This one hurt me. Not only did this one hurt me, this one really rattled my confidence. I was back. I was committed. Game of Thrones and I were back together again. And then this one happened. And I don't know how I'm going to handle this.
Yeah, it was, I really don't have any words for this. Like, I was just like, I thought, I wasn't a hugest fan of the episode that we, last week, episode 8. I thought there was a good Viserys, scenes in it, and Paddy Considine did amazing, and I'm like, that's cool. But it was really, really slow, and I was just like, the makeup of that just really took me out of it, and I wasn't really happy with that episode. But I was like hoping, more exciting things were supposed to happen, and you knew he's gonna die in this episode, and yeah, and just a lot of weird things happened in here. So I'm just gonna get started with the episode. So Viserys dies, and they immediately go into like damage control mode, and they tell Alicent, and she's freaking out, and um one of the interesting things that happens in this is they've gone on with the like prophecy, right? Like the prince that was promised thing that they've turned into like a Targaryen thing. And so Viserys says that he starts talking about Aegon, and he's talking about Aegon the Conqueror, and Alicent thinks that he's talking about his son Aegon, and so she ends up thinking that means he wants to be king. And I'm just like, ugh. And I gotta say, like, this is one of my issues with this episode especially. And I don't know if you're like, if you're feeling this or not, but like in the book, and I went and read this morning just so I would just check it. It's Alicent has so much more agency in this whole like plan to put Aegon on the throne, and they really took away that power from her in this episode, and she's more of a victim. And what are your thoughts about this?
Soft. They got soft. Had this been good Game of Thrones, Alicent would have been Alicent would not have needed the excuse of Viserys having the dream. She would be out here putting Aegon on the throne, not because of any prophecy, any miscommunication, any thought of the good of the realm. Fuck it. He's my kid. He's the son's firstborn heir. We're putting him on the throne, and everybody else can sit on it and spin.
You know what? That's absolutely what happens in the book, and I kind of forgot because they're so they want to make Otto Hightower the bad guy in this, and kind of like they kind of did this in the beginning when they're showing Alicent as like her dad forcing her to like seduce the king and marry him, so he's the bad guy and it's a patriarchy. But man, I forgot how much in the books that she really pushes this, and it's so stupid to see her in this show being like, what do you mean you guys were having this big conspiracy and you didn't tell me, and you were gonna make Aegon king when it's Rhaenyra's throne? I'm like, it's stupid. It's just so stupid. I was just like, yeah, I think you put it great when you said that, they went soft. And I mean, you know what it reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of how I had dated somebody that was married and had kids, and there was always this sort of like rivalry between me and his ex and his kids, and it was always like, you just know that somebody, they'll make the decision to put somebody ahead of somebody else. And even though you could be on good speaking terms with somebody, like, there's going to be a favorite, or like someone will get to the front of the thing. And I just thought, man, they should have like I mean, that's the way it is with like Alicent and Rhaenyra in the books. Is that like okay, maybe they pretend to get along for Viserys, but they're not going to go back to the crap they did in the show. Like, we used to be like lesbian lovers, and oh, that was the other thing I found out. And in case you guys watch our other stuff that Alex and I have done, we've been doing a fan fiction thing, and we talked about this in our second part that's going to be released soon. But we were saying that how we the fan service part. You remember that, Alex? And how we're
Yep.
like they always go into the gay shipping. Well, I looked up for that and found that yes, indeed, the people that made this show wanted they directed the actors to play Alicent and Rhaenyra as lovers, same-sex lovers, and that was written with the LGBT context in it. So they absolutely did want that, and in this episode you really see the fruits of that coming out where it's like, well, like, I really love Rhaenyra, and we used to be best friends and more, and I don't really want to do anything bad. And it's just, it didn't feel
Yep.
like Game of Thrones. Did you think so?
There were parts of this that felt like Game of Thrones, but they weren't. They were fleeting. It wasn't. I mean, it was maybe 5 minutes of an hour episode, and yeah, just this one wasn't it.
Yeah, this one was in it, and then you have Kristen Cole coming back, and he kills Lord Beesbury here, which does happen in the books, but I was just like, I don't know. It's like I guess it goes back to me not liking how they're showing Kristen Cole in the show as being like super like simpy and cucky with her, and I don't know. And then this part where the actual Lord Commander guy is like, he's just going off and saying like, trying to do the thing that Sir Barristan in Game of Thrones did when like Joffrey dismissed him and he just threw off his cloak and said like, "Fuck it, I'm out." But here it's like he's trying to do the same thing, and I just find it so disheartening when these shows go back to like either the original source material or like the show that they're building off of and just copy the same scenes. I was just like, ugh, I wanted more.
See, I didn't mind this, and I didn't mind it for two reasons. The first one was I thought it showed sort of a good indication that not everybody in the castle was going to go with this. Um, I also really like the trope of um, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. So, Sir Kristen Cole, if you want to step up and we can hash this out, feel free to do it. But if you're not willing to fight with me over this, then back the fuck up.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I kind of enjoyed that.
I guess
I
I
also
guess
like the
I
action.
I guess I think the thing now that I think about it, the thing that doesn't make it like it's probably harder for me to do is because like I know that like in the books that Alicent was really driving this scene here. And so,
Yeah.
like, Kristen Cole coming up and killing Beesbury, however he did it, and there's some conflicting things in the book about how it happened. It just felt like, yeah, he's, like, really supporting her, and, like, without that dynamic in the scene, I was kind of like, ugh. But, it wasn't, that part of it wasn't bad. And it was kind of funny how he just kind of knocked his head against the pool cue or whatever those things are supposed to be in there.
See, that was the one part of this that I really didn't like. Um, I sort of take the position in Game of Thrones. I don't like accidental deaths.
Yeah,
If you're going to kill somebody, nut up and kill somebody.
get
Let's
big or go
not.
home.
Yeah, let's not make it a convenience or a contrivance that somebody died. Make it a conscious action and decision.
Yeah, especially with something like this, because it's like, it's so like, it's a statement. It's kind of like what happened when he killed Joffrey Lonmoth, how in the book it was at a tournament in front of a whole bunch of people. It's like, in the spread of the small council, you're just gonna, like, eat this guy because you're declaring yourself for Alicent right there. Power move.
Yep.
So it's just like the part where he's throwing his cloak down, and yeah, okay, you're not Sir Barristan. And yeah, I just thought this part, I thought it was so contrived that Allison like just didn't know what any that her father was scheming or planning or anything. Like, did you buy that she wouldn't have known?
Um, I think if you're gonna buy that, you have to really accept that there is a huge difference between book Alicent and show Alicent. Um, in that show Alicent is kind of brand new to the espionage game.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't like it though, and I'll always go back to in Game of Thrones. I want my characters to be smart and vicious, and she's not smart and vicious here.
Yeah, she's
She's
definitely
naive and
like the
dumb.
season 1 Sansa. And I'm just like, man, you've been queen for like what, 20 years now? Like, get with the picture.
Yeah, and this also kind of paints the position that she hasn't really been doing anything. That it's all been Otto and Viserys, which may be correct,
Yeah.
but I don't like that characterization of her.
Yeah, I don't like it either because it takes the power away from her as a character and it robs her of her agency. And I just think, it's like you could be a female character with agency and not be like a victim of something. It's like you can be complex and that's just missing on the show. But we're getting
100%.
to
I would even go so far as to say that I think that is the. I don't mean to say the ideal role for an empowered female character is sort of the spy master, but there is a you're always going to have issues with a 5'3" woman trying to fight 6'5" dudes and making it believable. So it's better to take her the smart and stealthy route than the Galadriel route.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and I don't know if I know I've raised this point with other people, but I said if you're creating a world that's a patriarchal world and women they have very prescribed traditional roles and they make it very clear in the show that you're like you're gonna get married, you're gonna have kids, that kind of thing. And wouldn't you think if you wanted to be powerful as a woman, you kind of start exploiting that role and working with it so you're more likely to get like the characters like Catelyn Stark or like Cersei Lannister or even Daenerys? And it just like it doesn't make sense that like they wouldn't even be trying to work within the paradigm that the show people want them to have. Instead, she's just does nothing and she's just um the character's like not proactive. I guess that's what I'm looking for.
Yep.
And yeah, then we get this part and where the we cannot find Aegon part. And this gets really crazy. How did you feel about this part, the Aegon part?
In a series where you have an unlimited amount of time, I don't hate this.
Mm-hmm.
However, all TV shows have to budget their time wisely. And I didn't get Daemon Targaryen in this episode, and I instead
Yes.
spent 30 minutes running around King's Landing trying to find fucking Aegon.
I
I don't really give a shit
know.
about Aegon.
This
Like,
is so funny. And I kind of remember this in the book because I was kind of like, when I watched this, I was like, I don't like how they're characterizing Aegon because he didn't seem to be this much of a pushover in the show. And I figured out, or in the book, and I figured out where this came from. And I hate it because a lot of people are like, oh, well, the book is contradictory and there's these different sources. And what they decided to do with this one source was go like straight for the mushroom tale of this. And the funny thing when you're reading the book is that Mushroom's account of stuff are like sometimes it's more believable than what you would get from the Maesters and the Septons that are writing it, and then you get stuff that's just like I think it's just meant to be like kind of comical for the audience because it's so out of crazy left field. But Mushroom's account here was saying that Aegon was found in a rat fighting pit where two kids with filed teeth and sharp claws were fighting each other while like a underage child was doing unmentionable things to him. And it's like there's three different versions of this story they could have gone with, and that's the one that's they pick.
Yeah, and when I look at a scene like this, I'm trying to think what is the purpose of it,
Yeah, that's what
and the
I always think
purpose
too.
the purpose of this one was clearly to characterize that Aegon is not good,
Yeah.
for so many vastly different reasons. And I go back to time budgeting here. We've done that. We established that Aegon was not good when Aegon was raping people. Like,
Yeah.
we
Good
got it.
point. I
Like,
kind of like forgot about that point. And like, and another thing too is something that I learned recently. It's the whole lawnmower theory. It's like you don't make one character look really good by making all the other characters look bad, or like by tearing the other characters down. And I really feel that like they went with the whole mushroom story, which was outrageous and unbelievable and almost comical, because they're going to try to make like Rhaenyra look good. Because if they say this guy is like total depraved, fighting like there's child fighting pits and all this stuff, like we're all gonna like Rhaenyra a whole bunch, and she's gonna be awesome. But that's really not even the case in the story. But the
I think it's
message,
funny. Based on what I've seen on Twitter, the everybody on Team Green is saying that the show is showing blatant favoritism towards the blacks, and everybody on Team Black is saying that the show is showing blatant favoritism towards the Greens. Um, so that cracks me up, and I will.
that is funny. Because you know what I see as somebody that writes and reads a book? I see that this is like the show is blatantly favoriting favoriting. I can't talk. It's late. They're blatantly favoring like the idea of female victimhood to the point where it's actually hurting characters and making things illogical, like we just saw with Allison, and we'll see at the end of this episode. And I'm just like, I always gotta say that it almost feels like this is the episode that might have totally broken me with the show. And we're gonna get to that in a little bit, but aside from that one point that we're not there yet, but aside from that one thing, like there was so many other things in this episode. Yeah. So they spend all this time looking for it, and it's kind of funny because, like, I guess the one thing I like about this, and I shouldn't say there's things that I don't like because I always try to praise the stuff that I do like, is that I kind of like what they're doing with Aemond. I like the character of him. He ends up having like a really cool scene later on with Daemon, and they get in a big fight, and it's really, really good. And if they get there in the show, I think it's gonna be awesome. And I'm just gonna pause this here, but yeah, I really like how they're making Aemon this character. Like he's a capable person. He's very proactive, and I think they've developed him in such a way that he'll be a good foil for Daemon, which I think is kind of what the book tries to do. And it's kind of interesting too because the way the names are spelled, they're like almost similar.
Yep.
But this one, I wanted to stop the thing here because I don't know if we can see it. But they go out to this brothel and they're talking to a madam. And I don't know if you remember. Do you remember Roz, the hooker from She was in she went to King's Landing when everyone left. And wait, it's just right there. But and she ends up like hooking up with Theon Greyjoy, and
Oh, yep.
yeah, like the redhead. I thought this woman that they had playing the madam really looks like her, and I don't know if I can get her picture. It was really funny. You can't really see it
So you
probably
know,
because of the watermark, but I was like, oh my god, it's Roz.
so you know the behind the scenes story of that casting, right?
No, no,
So that was the actor who played Sir Kristen Cole's acting instructor.
that's funny.
So there's a very charming behind the scenes story where he's talking about how absolutely terrified and nervous he is because he's having to perform in front of his teacher. Plus, she's being like sort of like flirty and polite.
That's funny.
Yep.
That
I
is so.
also I also loved the Amond and Cole like complete like dichotomy that
Yeah, it's like
they
like
make
they're
a great
that's
odd
funny.
couple.
I'm almost like it would have been so much funny if they just would have said like "fuck it, I'm out." It just would have just ran around the city like just doing random shit, buddy cop style. But
I mean,
unfortunately, they
isn't that
don't.
what a lot of what they do in the Dance with Dragons? Is it's just Cole and Damon running around?
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool. And so we get going back here, and then they come back, and Otto Hightower is making everyone swear fealty to the, I guess, to their party. Yeah, I think because they ask about Aegon there. But you know what I didn't like about this scene, and they've done it in other scenes, is that because there's so much time compression in the show, we never learn who anyone is. And I think if I was in that position, I'd probably want to do something visual, like with costuming, that would tell me each house that these people belong to. And like that's one thing that you don't really get in this show is the kind of like the sigils or the house colors or something telling us who these people are. So I don't know about you, but unless the like closed captions are on when I watch it, like I have no idea who these people are. Sometimes I'm just like, do you
Yeah,
find
I
it
get it
confusing?
sometimes based on what they're wearing, but not nearly as much as I would like. And I know that would be tough because if you were to do that, it would make them look like the fucking Justice League. But um, I don't disagree.
Yeah, that's just one thing that's really confusing because there's so many people, and it's like, and then I hate it because the one time they'll, or the few times that they'll do something, it feels like just pointless, like member berries or whatever. And like this point here, it's like there's like four people that don't swear fealty, and like one of them gets hanged, and then the other one like gets locked up, and then I think this is the part where they find. Oh no, they're going looking for him, and then oh yeah, the child fighting pit, and God, yeah, like you said, like why? Why do we need to see this? Because they've already established this guy as a douchebag.
Yeah. Now Pips and I were talking about this episode before, and he said, you have to do this because kings raping servants is just sort of Tuesday in Westeros.
Yeah,
Um, if you just have that scene, you basically just have a slightly shittier Robert Baratheon. Whereas when you see this, you see that, oh my God, we have a slightly shittier Joffrey Baratheon. Um,
yeah.
I don't know if I buy that, and even if I do
I
buy that, I still maintain it was not an efficient use of time. This could have been 5, not 25.
yeah,
But
exactly. I agree with that too. I just didn't like it just for the reasons it's like sometimes I find the show like they do a lot of stuff that's just really, I don't know, out there just for the sake of doing it. And yeah, and it's so silly because it is go for so long. And I think let's see, where are we? They end up looking, they end up finding that okay, Massaria, and then they also have Sir Eric and Sir Eric looking for him, and they tell, oh, it's Sir Eric and Eric that find out that Massaria has the information, which is just like, couldn't you just find that out from the hookers?
yes, and that was kind of one of my issues with that scene was um, there was a point in this series where there would have been no bargaining with the white worm. It would have been grab her, and if she doesn't tell us, we're cutting her head off.
Yeah, that's what this part should be. And it's just it doesn't happen that way. It's just like, and it's so stupid how it happens. It's like this, they find him at the child pit, and then they go and then they bring Otto to find them, and then it's like they're having this conversation about, and the way that that seems to have happened in the episode is that she kidnapped Aegon, and you're having a just think about the logic of this. You're having a conversation with two members of the King's Guard and the King's Hand about kidnapping the prince in an open air market where everyone can see, and you don't have any backup or anything. You're just, you can do better.
Yes, and then to add on to the contrivance, Amond and Cole just happen to get frustrated and sit down at the exact place at the exact time that this conversation is happening so that they can follow it. Come on,
Yeah,
guys.
I'm
We,
just
we can
like,
do better.
and I'm still curious about how Masseria even found out that he was dead because they were so quick to like lock up everyone up. How would she know? And it's like we're
Uh,
talking
it
about like
was
this is just a matter of hours after he's dead.
so it. I think it's implied two ways. The first is the candles,
Oh, the
uh,
candles. Yeah, I forgot the candles.
and then the second thing is it's. I think it's kind of heavily implied that she has her own whisper network among the servants.
Yeah, definitely. That's right. I did forget about this point because I was so mad about other crap in this episode. But
All right.
st- yeah,
Yeah.
and this is an interesting part that I kind of paused it at, and this is something I didn't like that they did in the show that I thought was better in the book because it showed like the intent of these people. Is that in the book, Viserys dies and they don't tell anyone about it for like a week. And so they end up leaving his body in his bed and it starts rotting and smelling, and then they finally have to do something about it. And it just goes to show how invested everyone is in this conflict and getting Aegon into position as king here, that they just don't give a shit about Viserys anymore. But they don't do that here because all of this happens like within a day.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it had the same effect on you because you're not a book reader, but I was just like, okay. I mean, I do kind of appreciate how they had her like actually caring about Viserys. Like that was kind of nice, but at the same time, it's like comes at the cost of her not being ambitious, you know?
Yeah. Didn't love it. Didn't hate it. It
Yeah, I
was
just kind of felt
fine.
ambivalent about it. It was kind of cool seeing the Silent Sisters and stuff, and they showed that in the last episode too. But now we get to the part. Oh God, this is the women affirming women part, and we've seen it so many times when we've been doing our rewatches of Wheel of Prime, where it's like they'll have women just saying positive things about each other to other women. And I don't know about you, but I'm a woman, and unless I'm around my friends or something, like that is just not how women act. And I thought the scene was so stupid because it's like she comes to Rainey's and she's like, "Oh well, you should have been queen," and she's like, "No, you should be queen now," and I'm just like, "Stop."
So I thought this was interesting in the. I get why this conversation happened.
Yeah.
She's trying to make an alliance with Rainey's, so I
Mm-hmm.
get that. So she kind of first offers, like, sign up, let's be friends. And then she has well, okay, if we're not going to be friends and you're not going to swear loyalty, then you're not allowed to leave the castle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I get why it happened. I don't think they needed to jerk each other off nearly as much as they did.
Yeah, I've had this problem with Rainey's, like in all of the scenes, like in the very first episode when she's talking to Rhaenyra, and it's like she's trying to tell her about like, oh, you should be queen and stuff like that, and this is just some horrible, unfair world you're living in, while at the same time offering her daughter to be in that kind of unfair world position by offering her daughter up to the king to marry. And I've really not been happy with how they're characterizing Rainey's, and I didn't realize what they were doing until this part, and it seems to me like they don't really have like Rainey's the day before. Rainey's basically said, "Yeah, we'll marry our children to Rhaenyra's children, and they'll get engaged and solidify the houses that way." So, I mean, the logical thing, if it was Alice, it would be like, okay, lock that bitch up, because, like, she just declared for Rhaenyra, right? Like, that's what I would do. But they have Rainey's always fence sitting, and it seems like she's just there to kind of deliver whatever kind of message that they need to get in this screen, in this scene. Like in this scene, it's like she's coming and it's like, well, you should have been queen. It's like you're the queen that never was. And in the like other episodes, it's like she's telling Rhaenyra that like, oh, the patriarchy is really bad, and that to me makes it. They just don't seem to. Her character suffers for it. Like they couldn't decide. Like she should. Like in the books, she's very much on like Rhaenyra's camp, and she always has been. And she just never really wishy washy. And I don't know. I I was just like, God, you guys just kind of failed at it again. But
Yeah, but Rainey's needs 15% more of that Eamon Damon energy.
everyone does it. This show, the big dick energy. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, that's yeah. They're just lacking that, and so yeah, she does that, and she's all like, "Yeah, it has for your support. You got to support me. I mean, you literally just said it in front of everyone at dinner last night that you're going to support Rhaenyra, but I need your support." And let's get this back a little front. And this is a part of the dumb thing too, is they talk about how, men are gonna cause all these problems, and there's just so much destruction, and then at the end of the episode, yeah,
Yeah.
hypocritical much. I mean, I'm sorry, you cannot get me to take you seriously as a character when here and before you're just like, all of these men, they're so bad and they cause all these wars, and then at the end of the show, you literally bust your dragon out of the dragon pit, killing thousands of people. No,
Yep.
I'm sorry, that doesn't work. Yeah.
Nope.
And she just leaves her and says, "Ah, you can make your choice." And then the guys are still looking for Aegon. And then here's that scene with Viseria, and yeah, we're gonna have this really like important conversation in an open air market where everyone can hear us. This is so weird. It's like, you think, you know what? Like, remember with Littlefinger, he had that like really pimp ass mansion where he had all the like hookers and stuff. She should have that too.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and of course you have Eric and Eric, and they talk about like Damon and stuff. And this is kind of weird too, is it's like she's like Team Damon all the way, and I'm just weirdness.
I got the impression she was more team small folk.
Yeah,
And
maybe that too. Maybe that's what they're trying to play her as.
and I really, really, really hope that Rainey's busting out of that dragon pit and killing all those people is going to have some kind of impact.
Yeah, or
Like
have
if
she'll
they
have
just
some kind
brush,
of consequence from it.
yeah,
Like there just seems to be like an absolute lack of consequences here. And then here's where they found Aegon, and it's like I will admit, like in the book, he says like, "Oh, why do you guys want to make me king? It's like supposed to be Rhaenyra." And but like by the end of this dilemma, and this in the book, it probably will last for about a week. In the book, he ends up coming around and says like, "Fuck it, if you're gonna crown me, crown me." He doesn't come off like he does here, and I just hate that. I'm just like, let's make characters look really weak. And then, oh, this scene, oh my goodness. This confused me so much because I'm like, why are they fighting? Like, why are Avid and Aegon fighting?
I mean, Aegon's trying to escape, and Aemond is
It just,
capturing him slash venting some frustration.
yeah, that's all I could see. And I know like Eric and Eric kind of split ways, and there's like about half of the Kingsguard leaves for Dragonstone, and they sneak out and they take Viserys' crown with them. But yeah, this was. I mean, this made me like Aemond more, but at the same time, again, like the Viserys scene, it's like, is this the best place to be having this fight, guys? Like, let's talk about me not wanting to be king in front of a whole bunch of people, but hey, it works for them, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then and then we go back here, and then they're finally sending off some messages, and it's Otto and Alicent here. And this is basically where she comes in and she's like, how could you be scheming all of these years to put my son on the throne? And you know what I like about the book is that it does give her the power as this sort of like uber protective, like mama bear figure for her children, because as much as everyone likes Viserys in the show, he's really a shit king. Like, you can sympathize with him as a person, and they definitely do that in the show, but as a leader, he's really awful. Like, he made some serious mistakes, and especially after he was involved with two different situations where they were contesting the succession, and then he goes and does something that ruins both precedents in both times, and to put his daughter like on the throne and name her heir, and he does something that he shouldn't have done, and that was a big mistake and causes all these problems. But again, they try to like say, oh, this is all Otto, or like this is Otto making the plans, and Alicent didn't do anything with it, and she never would have thought to do this, and I absolutely hate that. I'm sorry.
No, so I guess I will say the I sometimes think Viserys gets a little bit too much flack for being a bad king. When I look at it, I think he basically made one bad decision, and that was not marrying Corlys's daughter.
Hmm.
Everything else that he does, every other decision that he makes, I think is very defensible.
Yeah.
Um, people can point to not naming Damon the successor, to which I just feel the need to ask the question: are we sure that would have been a good call? Because
Yeah.
I'm not.
I'm not entirely sure, like, either way, because eventually, in the end, and I'm not even sure this show is going to make it to the end of the story, but he does kind of end up being the brains behind Rhaenyra's operation, because she is not, never really was the great choice for anything, but I don't know, like, it's hard to say who would have been better, and I think it's kind of hard, too, because I think they do so much in the show to try to make Viserys, like, a sympathetic character that you don't see his like failures as a king and his sort of like personal failures too. Like they show him being sick in the show, but what happens in the book is that the guy just gets really really fat and ends up dying of a heart attack, and he's kind of
Mm.
prone to excess and stuff like that. But I don't think they wanted to show Viserys as a character that couldn't control himself like that, and they just didn't want to show like I don't think they like the idea of like the fat characters either, because Rhaenyra gets fat too in the book, but I don't know. I kind of
Uh, Blistering hot take here. I
go for
agree
it.
with George.
You agree with
The
George?
show version of Viserys is better.
Yeah, they. I mean, they better make him out to be a more sympathetic and nuanced character than he is in the book. And of course, you can do that when you have like 8 episodes that are an hour long versus like maybe 2 chapters in a book where there's like maybe one or like 3 or 4 like paragraphs in it. So, yeah. I mean, I think they did a better job on the show with the characterization, and they definitely found a winner with Paddy Constantine. Even I enjoyed his performance, even as silly as the makeup got in the end. He did a fantastic job, and I did enjoy his performance, and I was glad to have seen it. I wish the makeup wouldn't have been so bad in last episode, but yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, that's a scene that happened.
Let's take a moment to prepare ourselves. Deep breath. Are you ready for this, Alex? Okay.
No, but
But we're
I'm not
doing it
game.
anyways. Oh God. Do you want first shot at this, Alex?
Um, this didn't need to be done. There are certain things that just as a consumer and as a watcher, I never want to see. This is one of them.
No. No. No feet. Do not show feet. No. I I lost my shit when I saw this. I first thought, I'm like, what is she doing? Because you get to this point and he's just, and first of all, and we'll get to it there, but we just have to vent about this. I would just like to point out that in this show, we have not seen any like steamy sex scenes like original Game of Thrones. We have not gotten any tits. We have gotten nothing but creepy like sex scenes and orgy, like some young people like masturbating and feet. Do not, God. Ugh. I'm sorry. I thought Game of Thrones was better than this. I did not think this was what I was getting into with this episode, and this just absolutely like game over. Deal breaker for me here.
I owe a lot of people online an apology because I had a very firm position that trigger warnings are for children and weak people. I was wrong. There should have been a trigger warning for this scene.
It kind of made me think of that horrible part in Rings of Power where Jared's like, give me the meat, give it to me raw. Because this is just like, give me the feet, give it to me raw. And I'm just. Okay. So now that we've raged about how disgusting that is and how feet are just wrong, especially when we've had nothing pleasant in terms of those famous Game of Thrones sex scenes, I just have to say that I'm sorry, you cannot convince me that the woman that knows this dude has a foot fetish does not know that there's a spy ring in the Red Keep.
Yeah, that's a tough sell. About the only thing that I can think of is she's like, okay, if this is the only spy that I know, then clearly all spies are weird as fuck, and nobody else around me is 2% as weird as this guy. So, no, I don't think so. But I agree with you. You can't have those two realizations come so close together. It paints her in a very poor light.
It seems so like illogical to me, and I'm gonna just point this out because remember that one good episode? I think it was episode 7 when Larry's kind of brought Allison into his confidence and he got rid of his father and his brother to take care of her problems. And we got that really great scene at the end that was like, this is traditional Game of Thrones. This is what we like about the show. And it gave me hope that this was going to get better. So, like, she should have had some inkling there that there was some kind of a network here and this guy was being really tricky and stuff like that. And just to have it here where again Allison as the victim, and of course they're kind of, this is in that like creepy like Harvey Weinstein kind of a situation where she has to do this to get this guy to turn the spies in her favor. I don't buy it, sorry.
Yeah, this is another weak character. If this is supposed to be our Cersei Lannister,
Cersei would eat this bitch for breakfast and not even think anything of it. It's just like, bye ho.
uh, I will say that there may not. The two best characterization scenes ever, as far as like, okay, you get 15 seconds to tell me who this character is, are both women. And it is Sarah Connor in Terminator 2 when she's like repping out those pull ups. It's like, okay, this bitch is for real. At no point am I going to question anything she does in a fight scene. And then Cersei Lannister's uh, knowledge isn't power, power is
Power is
power.
power. Or like
Kill
just
him.
like
No
right
way.
after Robert dies and just she's just like, and she comes up with a piece of paper and she just rips it like bye.
Yep. I
Yeah, we want those kind of
Ellison
female
Ellison needs one
characters.
of those badly.
We do. They really, really do. It was kind of like when we got Book Damon came out and he killed Bayman Valerian, and I was just like, yeah, Book Damon, we need this. And then we don't see Damon for a while. And oh my goodness, but yeah, that was just so disappointing when they did that. And then we have this really dark scene, and this is their they're coming. Oh, they're getting Rainey's out. And let me get back to the good part at the end. And then this was so weird because I was trying to figure out what was going on here because I like there's all these people, and then they go to the dragon pit, and I just think this is really weird how they decided to show the dragon pit. And I'm gonna like fast forward it a little bit so to show it, because oh god, and then they this part is so funny to me because my mom has been like, oh my gosh, like you're just watching this show and it's making you so upset. Why are you still watching it? And I kind of told her why, and she wanted to see it for a little bit, and she was watching this scene and she just could not get over that Aegon is Alicent's son. And she was
I
just like,
believe I believe Aegon's actor is 7 months younger than it's either 7 or 17. I can't remember which, but it's
she just sat there looking at the screen and she's just like, that's not his mom, that's his sister. I was like, I can't argue with that, mom. And then they're in their giant like Airstream freaking like trailer of a carriage that is just like, I don't know if like that's tow rated for 4 horses. Those poor horses. But like it is like so ridiculous too, and it's kind of funny when she's just like, yeah, we're gonna make you king. And this is weird because at the same time it's like Alicent's like, no, I don't want to do this, I don't want to get involved with the schemes, how dare you scheme against Rhaenyra. But now she's like, you're gonna be king. And he goes, do you love me? And she looks at him and says, you're an imbecile.
yeah. I in a way I kind of thought this was good, um, because it sort of showed a little bit of kind of what's going on with Aegon.
Yeah.
Um, on the other hand,
Who's
um,
that scene that I wanted to watch?
I don't really care that much about Aegon,
Yeah,
so
it's like we haven't got that much investment in Aegon yet.
yeah. And it especially goes back to the big conflict in this episode was who's going to get to Aegon first, Otto or Alicent.
Yeah.
Both want to crown Aegon, so it doesn't really matter on that front. The only difference seems to be Alicent is going to tell Aegon not to kill Rhaenyra. Otto is going to tell him to kill Rhaenyra. And I ultimately get the impression Aegon doesn't give a fuck what either one of them thinks, so why does it matter in the first place?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, this kind when I saw the wedding scene in what was it, episode 5, it just really reminded me of this movie called Elizabeth. And this is something that's really common in these sort of like succession things, and where you have the situation where you have to like either seize control really fast and declare your support, get your supporters, kill your opposition, and take power as much as you can. And I thought this was like, this episode was way too long and they didn't do enough in it, and they probably could combine it with what's going to happen in the next episode and it would have been more exciting, and like it just would have covered more ground. But in the movie Elizabeth, it's like the same thing happens with Elizabeth where she just has to really consolidate her power. So basically, they take what happens in this episode and just put it in like a fully maybe 3-4 minute montage, and you see the soldiers arresting people, there are like executions. It's fast, and that should have happened here. But I pause this here, and I'm just gonna like say you're probably not gonna know what I'm talking about here. But I thought the way that they represented the dragon pit in the show is really strange, because I have the map book, and for anyone's a book reader, like tell me what you think about this. If you can see it, and the thing under here is that it's got like this kind of a moat to the dragon pit, And I always like saw it as, and I think it's in the map book too, as it's like on one of the hills, and it's like in the city. And so when I saw this, I'm like, where the hell are they? And I kind of knew where they should be because of what happens in the book, but it just looked really, really strange for me. So if you're a book reader and you have the map book, like, let me know what you think of how they decided to show the dragon pit. I mean, this part of it's good, and though I do have a question where the dragons get out in this thing, if that's the like kind of big thing, and it seems a little strange.
There's a tunnel off to one of the sides. You see it in the
Oh
first
yeah, where
episode
yeah, yeah.
when
You're right, Alex. Thank you for reminding me. But
which raises a separate set of questions, but we'll wait.
yeah, we'll wait till we get there. So again, this is a silly part where like Rainey's is in the crowd, and yeah, and I was listening to Pip's critique of these guys because Pips is in the military and he was critiquing their swords, and I agree completely with him. This looks so sloppy, and furthermore, this guy is in an unstable position. He has not been crowned king yet. Why is he just walking down here through all of this throng of people and there's like no king's guard with him? And you have there's gold cloaks. You can see their cloaks right there. And those people used to belong to Damon, so I was just thinking security concerns, but hey.
Otto does have a line about how most of the gold cloaks are now loyal to them now.
Yeah, I just wouldn't
Um,
risk it, but maybe that's just me.
so I guess the question that I have is in the books. I heard something that he's flying on Sunfire, I think, is his dragon,
Yes.
and like he does a couple passes around
Yeah.
the dragon pit and then lands, and then he marches through the same kind of like sword arches
Yeah,
up
he
to the
flies, he
altar.
does like 3 laps and then takes his dragon to the Red Keep, and presumably because he knows that there's going to be some kind of drama with Rhaenyra. And I'm sad that we haven't seen his dragon yet because Sunfire is really pretty. It's like one of the most beautiful dragons, it was said. And okay, so we get the coronation scene here, and I gotta show you. I gotta find where they bring out the crown. I was so disappointed with how the crown looked. I'm gonna try to stop it like where we can see it, so we can see it. It gave me just like here, you kind of see it right there. It gave me those like um Sauron vibes, like from Lord of the Rings. You know, where he has that like big pointy crown, and like we see it at the beginning of Lord of the Rings when they cut off the ring from his finger. And I mean, it looks cool in the books. Like, I'll have to get a picture and try to show it, but it just doesn't look anything like it does in the books. And the way that the books show it wasn't anything crazy, but it's got like this weird little pointy thing, and it's supposed to have rubies on it, and it's just got one little thing. And I was just like, man, probably a little nitpicky stuff, but
No, I was not impressed with the crown.
yeah. And okay, are you ready for this part?
Nope.
Oh no, we are. Yeah, bring it on. Okay. Because what could possibly go wrong here? I thought his thing with the sword was kind of stupid too.
Oh, I
It
thought
gave
the thing
me.
with the sword was great.
Yeah, he's like that. Yeah, I guess that kind of works because yeah, he's got like what is that, like a
Yeah, he looks like a
backbone?
poser.
Yeah. But here we go, because what could possibly go wrong? And bam, dragon. My goodness. If you thought feet weren't enough in this episode, we get this. And a good friend of mine once told me, your scenes serve your stories, or your scene serves the story. Your story can't serve the scenes. And this is what's happening here. This is like some people got in a room together and basically said, wouldn't it be cool if there was a dragon fight at the coronation because they're in the dragon pit? And I'd like to think that, maybe this was just our take on it, but then we have the commentary at the end, and No, they basically wanted to do that.
Sarah Hess single handedly made herself the most famous pure writer in Hollywood for that interview.
Yeah. It's
Like,
just,
there are petitions right now to get her fired. I have never heard that about a writer of a single episode before. Like, there's fire Rafe Judkins shit and like about showrunners all the time,
yeah,
but I
but the
have
writer.
never seen that before about a single
Oops.
episode writer.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
I hate this just on so many levels because what we talked about before, where you have Rainey's always being the mouthpiece, so that it's all these evil men causing the wars when she is handedly like flying her dragon, killing a whole bunch of people, and even worse is what happens here is she brings the dragon out, so she just killed a whole bunch of people, even though she said that that's only the purvey of evil, nasty men. And now she's sitting in front of her rivals, and she has the dragon, like, scream at them. And that reminded me of, like, that scene in Jurassic Park, when the, like, accountant guy comes out and what were they, the spitter dinosaurs? Kind of like,
Mhm.
so she just stands there and she's like, she could just end this all right now by just yeeting them all. The whole
Yep.
family, like right there. No, I'm not going to do that because you too, Allison, are a mother. And I'm like, what about all the mothers in that audience? What about
Yep. You
all of the
just
children and the
killed a
men?
thousand mothers.
Yeah, like their children don't matter, like their lives don't matter. You want to just have this cool set piece, and we want to show Rainey's being a cool badass character. Well, Sarah Hess could just go fuck herself because Rainey's does come back and she has her moment. There's a big dragon fight at the end, and she gets to go out like a dragon fighter. And they like by doing this crap, it's just going to rob her of that moment later on because it's just going to take all the wind out of her sails because yeah.
Like, let's say that hypothetically you wanted her to have that moment.
Yeah.
Have Sunfire follow her dragon up through the floor and like knock her away and save the family. Have Vagar coming in so that she has to bail out of there. Do anything other than let the Greens live.
Yeah, or just
He's now responsible
have her
for,
life be put into danger in some way that it would justify her using that much force against them.
yeah, she's trapped. She has no way to get out. She has to go up.
And
Do anything other than what they just did, because what they just did, she's now responsible for the death of every single person in the Dance of Dragons.
yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, how do you fuck up this bad? This is like when you watch Rings of Power and it's like you realize that Gladriel knew who Halbrand was the whole time, and she did nothing about it, and she didn't tell anyone. And basically, everything bad that's happening is because it's Gladriel's fault.
Yep.
And this is what they've done with Rhaenys. It's like she isn't. She's gone from being like fence sitter extraordinaire and like mouthpiece for the message to like I'm a mass murderer like for no reason. Like you could have just waited like an hour or two until everyone left, got your dragon, and either flew out the dragon door or like gone through the way you did, and you don't.
I I'm not going to lie. This episode rocked my confidence. Like, it was very easy for me to ignore all of the people saying stupid shit after the credits when the show was good.
Yeah,
After this episode, I am now seriously wondering, are they actually just morons and they have like drunkenly and incidentally stumbled into making all these good choices? Or I this episode combined with her comments seriously makes me question everything else that's happened so far. And it's not helping when she's saying similar shit about like, well, I don't know why people don't like Daemon Targaryen. It's like,
He's like
Bitch,
one
have
of
you
the
been
most
outside?
likable characters in the show. I just think these people get so absorbed in like their own missions. Like they get into a part and they're like, I'm a writer, I got this big show, I have a platform, and so I'm going to put everything into this show that I think is important because I have the time to, or like I have the ability to put the message out there and do that. And it's just like, with great power comes great responsibility, and if you cannot honor the story before your propaganda, like maybe television writing isn't the job for you, and you should just go and, I don't know, like make PSAs for the government.
Yeah. Again, I was talking to Pips about this morning. His first thing was he doesn't like this show as much as I do, and he said, um, there are just a bunch of like things that they've done in this show that really irritated me. Like in season 6, when Damon's wife decides to kill herself by dragon fire.
Yeah.
I'm just like, who was responsible for that? Same bitch. Like
I wonder
the
if this was
two.
the same woman that decided, like, they were talking about the cast changing, race swapping the Valerians, and she said that she was tired of seeing white faces on television.
No, that was Condell and Sapoknik. That was not.
No, it was a woman. It was one of the showrunners. I just remember that. I have to find the article again, but I was just like, why do you do this? And I think the most heartbreaking thing for me as a book reader is just knowing the extent that George has been involved with this, and him saying that this is like good and he likes the choices that they did with the show. It's almost just heartbreaking as seeing Brandon Sanderson support Rafe Judkins, which is just beyond the pale in my book, but
Yeah, I
I just think it's awful when like writers like George and Brandon are like they're so desperate to get their stuff out on the screen because it's obviously, and I can't even blame them. It's such a good way. I mean, it's how you make money, and there's so much money to be had there that they're willing to sort of sacrifice their integrity as a writer and maybe make their like take the quality of their works down to appease these people. Excuse me. And it just makes me like so depressed to see that, and it almost makes like it takes like George R. R. Martin down so much in my estimation as a writer too, knowing that he had like a background in like screenwriting and script writing, and he's done scripts before, and I don't know, it's just disappointing all around.
I need to see how this one finishes.
Yeah, I'm
If
really curious to see. It's like I know the kinds of things that we'll probably see next episode, but there's going to Amond gets a sort of like a job to do, and he's gonna have run-ins with his cousins, and that's gonna get a little bit dicey. And that could be some good action. There's probably going to be a dragon fight with that, and then there's, I don't know if they're going to show this on this episode because the pace of this show is so slow. Oh my goodness. It's like we are not going to be in the meat of the Civil War until, like, at the rate they're going, probably not until the second or third episode of the second season. It's just, oh my goodness. That's probably one of my biggest complaints about this is the pacing and what they chose to focus on. But I'm hoping that I will actually do the video where I just critique all of that and say how I would do it if I was writing it. But we'll get there soon. So, what would you say, Alex? What would you rate this show? Or this one particular episode?
a 5,
Yeah, that's pretty consistent with
that's
how you've rated it. And I'd say it's probably like, it's like on like a 3 or a 2 on my like extremely harsh scale. So I was just not happy. And I don't know, I can't honestly say if I'll keep watching the show like in season 2. What do you think? Would you watch it?
absolutely like I
Just out of curiosity.
overall. Honestly, with the exception of this episode, I think if you remove this episode, this show is about an 8 of 10 for me. Like I have really, really, really enjoyed this one so far. I have my little pieces with it, but up until this one, I was 100% committed, and now I'm questioning.
Questioning. Yeah. I know.
And
I gotta say that I really appreciate the fact that like we could have this really great conversation about this, and we are like totally on different opposite ends about this, and I really appreciate you coming back and filling in last minute, and I just appreciate you even wanting to talk to me because I know so many people are just so up with it, like they're so polarized and stuff, but I've enjoyed the two shows that we've done, and thanks for stepping in at the end. Do you have anything you would like to plug or anything? Because we've been talking for a while.
just kind of continuing with the rewatch.
Yeah, come
Gonna
check out
gonna
our
be
rewatch this week on the Whitecloak because it's the women's circle, and there's lots of like arms under breasts and brain tugging in this episode, and there's three of us versus the three Whitecloaks. It's gonna be really awesome. Do you know what day that's gonna come out?
I believe that
Probably like tomorrow.
it's gonna have to be
Probably when this
tomorrow.
comes out. But
I know,
that's
I
really
know, I
cool.
know. We've released two shorts. I know there was a lot of editing that had to be done with that one. So that is not my department, however. But I believe it'll be tomorrow.
Awesome. Well, I'll be sure to link the White Cloaks down there. We love you guys, and thank you for stepping in like last minute. I know I was gonna have Steve Prophet of the Dragon on tonight, but he had to work. But we're hoping we'll be together like for another stream, and hopefully you two will join me, Alex. I know I'm gonna try to do a low gain stream maybe next week or the week after, but I've never streamed before, so this should be an exciting experience. And thank you guys so much for joining us for episode 9. We have the finale of season 1 next week, and that will be really fun. And I've already got my guests lined up for that. So thank you so much, and we will see you again next week. And thank you for watching.